Greetings, sir! We are Kapwa Dangal ng Bayan. Our group consists of Christian M. Ignacio,
Helena Princess Lima Labana,
Mark Jimal A. Mengito,
Elmi Amorsi Padua,
And I am Ryan Kerr Polinar,
Oliver Emmanuel C. Quiroz,
Israel Estravalio,
Revelyn Joy R. Sagasiban,
Lawrence Andrew B. Santos,
and Lawrence M. Tagalog Jr.
We were assigned to create a menu-driven student and subject enlisting program to simulate the recording of student details and subject details.
For the main.java class, we imported various utilities like buffered reader, IO exception, and input stream reader on the first part of the code so that the program can read the user's input and can throw an input and output exception if the user input is incorrect. Now, we declared global variables such as arith list for list student or student, and list subject for subject, integer for choice, student IDs, which is equated to 1, subject ID, subject units and index, and lastly a boolean named check valid that is equated to true. Following the declaration of the global variables, we created the object's name student object for the object of student class and the object's name subject object for the object of subject class. Then finally, we declared another global variable string for first name, middle name, last name, course, and subject name.
The entry point of the main is the public static void main string args throw IO exception. We then constructed the structure of the print in order to display the system title and the menu options. For the menu options to loop, we use a do-while loop. The menu options that is looping has create new student record, create new subject record, enlist a subject to a student, remove a subject from a student, display details of a student, display all details of all students, display all students' details enlisted in a selected subject, and exit. The choice variable is equated to the buffered reader's read line, so it will be the data storage of the input entered by the user. We use Java exception to handle wrong input and use try-catch to execute in the code block.
Now, let us proceed on the choices. We use switch statements to define the user's choice from the menu options that are numbered from 1 to 8. The cases for switch are the following. Case 1, to create a new student record. Case 2, create a new subject record. Case 3, enlist a subject to a student. Case 4, remove a subject from a student. Case 5, display details of a student. Case 6, display all the details of all students. Case 7, display all student details enlisted in a selected subject. And case 8, exit the program. And lastly, the default for default message if there is an invalid input like integers 9 and up.
let us now discuss the methods that we used. On this class, we created 7 methods such as create student method, create subject method, enlist subject method, remove subject method, display student details method, display all student details method, and display student by subject ID method. The create student method is used to establish a new student record and also used in case 1. The student's first name, middle name, last name, and college course will all be asked by the program. Once the user satisfies the condition, the program will print done. The parameters or records will all be assigned to the student class through its object name studObj, and the student ID will then increment after accomplishing the program.
The next method is for creating a subject record, which is the create subject method that is used in case 2. The program will ask for a subject ID, which will be assigned as the subject ID. If the entered ID has been duplicated, the program will ask for another subject ID. After that, the program will ask for the subject name and subject units, which will be assigned as subject name and subject units. In this method, we use do-while loop and try-catch statements for invalid inputs. The program will ask for a different subject unit after the user enters an invalid input for subject units. Once finished, the program will print an informal message, done.
In case 3, we use the enlist subject method that is used for enlisting a subject record. The program will ask for the student ID first before enlisting, and the for loop that is the one responsible for finding out the student's record using the ID provided. If the entered student ID did not match any records, the program will ask for another student ID. Hence, the program will display the available subjects that are recorded. After that, the user will be asked to enter a subject ID, and a separate for loop will be used to get the subject details. If the entered subject ID did not match any of the records, the program will ask for another subject ID. Hence, the program will add the subject to the user's record.
On removing a subject from a student, we use the remove subject open close parenthesis method and place it in case 4. The program will ask for the student ID and will loop to get the student record. If the entered student ID did not match any records, the program will ask for another student ID. Hence, the program will display the available subjects that can be removed. After confirming the student ID, the program will ask for the subject ID of the subject to be removed. After confirming both, the program will print done, and the user will be asked to check the student record for the changes.
For case 5, we use the display student details method, which is responsible for displaying the details of the student. We use a do-while loop here to validate the user's input and loop the requirement. Java exception was also used to validate invalid inputs like characters. The user will enter the student ID and display the student's details if all requirements are met. If the entered student ID did not match any records, the program will ask for another student ID. Hence, the program will print the student's details.
On to the next one. The display all student details method is used in case 8 and will display all of the student's record and their details. Since a for loop keeps a record of every detail that is recorded, we use it to display every detail. Finally, for our last method, the display student by subject ID method is used in case 7 and will display all of the subjects that are available and will then ask the user to enter a subject ID. If the entered subject ID did not match any records, the program will ask for another subject ID. Hence, the program will print an information message containing the students that are enlisted in the subject.
Student class is one of the 2 child classes we have in our program and contains various private variables related to a student's details such as student ID, first name, middle name, last name, and course.
The student class also has an array list object for the subject class called list subject that will be used for later. After variables or class fields are the constructors, there are 2 constructors inside the student class, which are the default parameterized constructor that contains student ID, first name, middle name, last name, and course as its parameters.
Student class contains various getters, setters, and methods, and we will show you all the methods used in this class. The getStudentID method returns the student ID of a student object. Next are getFirstName, getMiddleName, and getLastName methods which return the first name, middle name, and last name of a student object.
GetFullName method returns the concatenated values of first name, middle name, and last name. Another is the getCourse method, which returns the course of the student object. GetStudentDetails method returns the student ID of the student object along with its full name and the subject enlisted through the use of getFullName, and shows subjects method, respectively.
Next is the getRecord student details method that gets the details of the student object student ID, first name, middle name, last name, and college course. Another is the add subject method, which adds a subject or an element in the list subject array list of a student object, while the remove subject method removes a subject or an element in the list subject array list of a student object.
And then lastly, the show student subjects method basically prints all the elements of a list subject array list of a student object.
The child class in this given program is called a subject class that contains private variables which define subject details such as integers like subject ID and subject units, string named subject name, and an array list called list student.
The same goes with student class. The subject class also consists of constructors such as default constructor subject and a parameterized constructor containing the subject ID, subject name, and subject units as its parameters.
There are visible getters in this program such as getSubjectID, which pertains to getting the ID of the subject chosen, and the getSubjectDetails, which gets the details of the subject chosen by the user. Another one is the public string getStudentInSubject, which is used to get that specific student from a certain subject.
The next thing visible in this program is a setters, which is commonly referred to setting a new value. The setter involved in this code is to add student to subject, which adds a student to a certain subject.
Methods such as showSubject makes the subject enlisted be visible to the user or serves as a display of subjects. In contrast to the add subject to student, remove subject pertains to removing a specific subject in the list of subject from one student.
Now, in order to view or see the listed students in a subject, this method called show students in subject can be implemented to satisfy the needs of the user.
Validation is an essential matter in a program, as this can be used as a debugging tool to find errors and also makes the program user-friendly as they notify the user what they have inputted wrong. In the main Java file, the list of options for the menu already contains a validation with the use of a do-while loop for looping the menu as the program wants to continue to ask for the user input if it is invalid or not. The do-while statement includes the try-catch. The catch allows us to define the code to be executed. If there are encountered errors, then they will be blocked. In this case, the user should only be entering a choice that is included in the menu and must be an integer. The default of the catch is used in the program if the user entered a character or any other symbols aside from an integer, and if the choice is greater than 8. Then a system message will notify the user to put a valid option. For enlisting the subjects, it will check if the ID is available in the system. If yes, this will tell the user that their input was successfully done and they can proceed to enlist the subjects. However, if not, an error message will be shown telling the user that the entered student ID is not found. The same applies to removing a subject and its ID. The validation for subject units and student details such as ID is for checking if the entered units are characters and other symbols than integers. If incorrect, the program for incorrect subject prints "Please enter valid subject units" and "Please enter a valid student ID" for incorrect student ID.
Once we run the code, the title of the program, as well as the different operations, will appear. The program will then ask the user what operation he or she wants to be performed.
When the user chooses the first operation, which is the create new student record, The user will enter the student's first name, middle name, and their last name, including their college course. After entering the information, the program will inform the user that their record has been recorded and their information will be displayed. For additional information, the student ID is automated.
When the user chooses the second option, which is the Create New Subject Record, the program will ask the user about the subject ID, the subject name, and also the units of the subject. Once the user is done inputting information about the subject, the program will inform the user that the subject has been created or added.
When the user chooses the third operation, which is the enlist subject to a student, the program will ask the user to enter their student number and enter what subject ID they want to enlist.
When the user wants to remove a subject from their record, he or she needs to choose the fourth operation, which is remove a subject from a student. The student should enter the student's ID, and the program will show the subjects that have been added and ask the user what the subject ID he or she wants to remove.
Once the student or user chooses the fifth operation, which is the display details of a student, the program will display the user's student ID, full name, college course, as well as the enlisted subjects.
When the user wants to see all the details of students, he or she needs to choose Operation 6, which is the display all details of all students. The program will display all students with their specific details.
When the user chooses the seventh operation, which is the display all student details enlisted in a selected subject, the program displays all the student details enlisted in a selected subject. The program will ask to enter subject ID, and it will display all students who are enlisted in the inputted subject.
If the user chooses the last or the eighth operation, the program will display a phrase, "Thank you for using our system," and will then be terminated.
This is the UML diagram we created for the Student and Subject Enlisting System program and the existing parts included in it. As you can see, we have two classes named Student and Subject. Student class is one of the child classes of main, which consists of variables and methods that stored the value of the student. The subject class, on the other hand, is the other class, which also consists of variables and data about the subjects that can be enlisted.
Now for the structure of the diagram. The first half of the storage contains attributes, variables and data, and while the remaining half contains methods and operations. In addition, both classes are related and aware of each other. We made this UML diagram as simple as possible and added some color and label to identify which class category belongs to.
And that concludes the presentation of our midterm project in object-oriented programming.
We are Kapwa Dangal ng Bayan. Thank you for watching.